College football rankings by the 12-member committee comes out. Yes, the top 5 of the polls this past week. Jamel, is it possible 2 teams from the SEC West could be headed to the Final Four?
No, I don't think so. And again, we're back to the same old sort of controversies in college football. People think, or they thought, that the playoff would eliminate that. But now you're going to have a bunch of one-loss teams, and it's going to essentially become a beauty pageant. And oh, by the way, let me get this straight. So LSU, we all know this is a down year for LSU, right? They upset Ole Miss. How come the SEC can't be a little overrated?
Yes.
Because that's theoretically what that would mean, right? Because if that happened in the Big Ten, all you would hear about is people complaining that the Big Ten was overrated, but the SEC, no, they can't be overrated. I forgot.
Just because I completely agree with you, and I don't mean to upset the SEC. Well, maybe a little bit. But it is an overrated conference. And I'll tell you what, just because there's great equality with the top teams, and just because they knock each other off, doesn't mean that they are a collection of superheroes. And I hope that by the time the Final Four is set in this sport, I hope that the Oregon is in it. I hope Michigan State is in it. And then Florida State and one SEC team. That's my dream Final Four. But you know what? The narrative will change 12 times before the end.
Obviously, the optimum circumstance to give real credibility and juice to the first ever tournament would be nice, balanced geographic distribution. Oregon, and then, you know, the SEC, and Michigan State may very okay. I think they're going to have to wind up doing a lot of justifying and rationalizations to keep a second SEC team out. One of them is going to be there. Well, one will be there. I think they're going to. I just think in the end they're going to have to do a lot of rationalization to keep them out. I think so. I do.
And I think there will be one there. I don't think they'll have to rationalize to put a second.
No, to keep one out. They're going to have rationalize to keep a second.
But I don't think it's automatic, Bob, that there's going to be 2 SEC teams.
And let's throw Georgia in the mix if they win the SEC championship game. What if the SEC championship game turns out to be a 5-overtime epic, and you can't pick between those 2 teams, and you know that in your heart that the 2 of them should be.
And by the way,
I'm
preaching to the choir here, and I know that there's no justice in sports, and there should be no carryover. Michigan State got so screwed last year by not being in the national championship mix because of a game they lost in September on some bogus pass interference calls at Notre Dame. And I am hoping that Ohio State, even though they struggled the way they did and blew that lead against Penn State, I hope that the Ohio State-Michigan State game really for a spot in the Final Four if whoever wins it doesn't lose any more games.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is that everybody gets an opportunity to settle the debate on the field. What you don't want to see happen is the committee gets into a room and then certain biases and other things come into play. But absolutely, if Ohio State and Michigan State, I know Ohio State having lost Braxton Miller and people thought they would be down, but that team is really good.
Danny Cannell in the house, and you're going to give us the top 4. But now, Heather, after the events of the weekend and everybody jockeying for position here ahead of the playoff committee releasing their first rankings on Tuesday, what should we expect Tuesday?
The only thing that I can promise everybody is lots of debate. And the number 4 completely up for grabs. Number 1 and number 2 should be the only 2 undefeated teams left, Mississippi State, Florida State. But after that, it's just this jumble of one-loss teams. And I've spoken with committee member Mike Gould. He told me they are going to consider injuries. That's a big deal because Oregon lost at home when their offensive line was banged up against Arizona. Ohio State lost at home in the second week of the season when their starting quarterback was making his first career start at home, J.T. Barrett. So they're going to consider head-to-head results. What do you do with Alabama and Ole Miss? So there are a lot of questions that are going to be answered, but the only thing I can promise is a lot of controversy.
Meanwhile, Marshall, by the way, has hired a PR team. We're still here, by the way. They're
going to get their money's worth after barely getting by FAU yesterday.
They're going to need that PR team, right? Danny, who's in your top 4 right now if you're on the committee?
All right, like Heather said, it really could be a 1A and 1B. I'm going to give the edge to Mississippi State, so we'll put them in the 1 spot. Number 2, I'll give to Florida State, the other undefeated. Number 3, I think Oregon. Heather mentioned the injuries that they had when they lost to Arizona. I think they deserve the number 3 spot. And then the 4 spot, you're going to like this one, Hannah. This one's just for you. I really really do feel like
Danny.
Notre Dame, what they did against Florida State was so impressive. I know you're upset about the call steal, as most of Notre Dame
You know
fans
what? That's
are.
okay, because I'll see you in Dallas for the rematch. I'm fine with that.
I think it would be great for college football, too, but there's still so much football to be played.
Right. Why did you put the Irish at number 4?
I really do feel like they're a complete team. I like Everett Golson at quarterback from what they showed against Florida State, and then I give them credit. They play more Power 5 opponents than anybody. They don't schedule cupcakes, and I like that about Notre Dame.
Right. They still have ASU on the road, USC, and the rest. Danny, good man. I like it.
Just for you.